All right, so the Magnus game, I'm playing black. This is from the titled arena. And Magnus played the center game, which is pretty rare opening these days. But in bullet, Magnus plays a lot of interesting stuff. This is bullet 1+0, and I think he chooses an opening to play in a tournament, and then it sort of sticks to it. And here he played the center game, which is d4, e takes d4, and queen takes d4. This is not a terrible opening. It's a pretty venomous line, and black has to know what he's doing. It's not very commonly played today, but it is something that you can uncork once in a while. Now the Danish gambit here is more popular. The Danish game is more popular. c3, d takes c3, bishop c4. The Danish gambit, rather. And this is, an opening that I recommend to a lot of beginners. Very, very interesting play. I won't analyze it right now. Thank you, DGuy30. But Magnus takes on d4. So knight c6, of course, is black's move. And now queen to c4, which is a sideline. Apparently, it's called a Hall variation. I think the main line is to drop the queen back to e3 in order to leave the d-file open for the rook. And basically, white very quickly tries to castle long. Yeah, Magnus does it for fun, of course. He just tries different lines. So queen c4 I already didn't know. I mean, this was unfamiliar to me, but I decided to play naturally, just develop all my pieces. Knight f6, knight to c3. And now bishop b4, just developing actively as I would normally do. And yeah, so bishop b4 pinning the knight. Magnus goes bishop to d2, unpinning the knight. Castles and castles. So very typical center game kind of action. Now my bishop is not developed yet, so I decided, well, I didn't play d6 immediately. I decided to start with, thank you, Aldo Benko. I decided to start with rook e8. And the point of this is to put pressure on the e4 pawn. So, for example, if he goes knight to f3, I can take the knight on c3, and then I can take on e4. And I'm a full central pawn up, and then I can play d6. So I wanted to force him into playing f3. And he did. He plays f3 to defend the pawn. So this is all very normal. Now I play d6 in order to get the bishop out. And Magnus goes g4, which is the secondary idea. Of playing f3. You might see this in the Sicilian. Sometimes white attacks to the king side with pawns. Okay, so I go bishop e6, developing my bishop with tempo, and Magnus drops the queen back to e2. So far, everything has been very normal. I mean, for the center game, and this is where things heat up. I decided that I'm just going to go all in this game. My wins against Magnus, all of them have occurred in super tactical positions. And I figured that I don't want to get into some sort of a drawn-out endgame, so I figured I'd just throw all of my pieces at him, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it doesn't work. And I found a good opportunity to start doing that here. Black has a couple of ways to play this kind of position, but there's a very aggressive move here that I spotted. And the moment I spotted it, I played it. I didn't calculate anything. So who can spot this move? Yeah, so the typical move is d5, but it's even more direct than d5. d5 doesn't really stop g5, and the knight is attacked, and if the knight moves, then you might end up losing your d5 pawn. Thank you, FR Mac, for the tier 1. But the move is knight d4, yeah. And it may seem like a paper tiger because white goes queen f2. And white just attacks the knight. Like, what was the purpose of this? But the follow-up here is c7 to c5. This not only defends the knight. What else does this move accomplish? What do we prepare here? And this is where things really get heated. Excuse me. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Yeah, it opens the queen. The queen is going to come out to a5. That is going to be big problems for white because now I have a bunch of pieces accumulated on the queen side. So Magnus goes a3 to attack my bishop, but obviously in the spirit of what I had promised myself, these are not rhetorical questions. In the spirit of what I had promised myself, I wasn't just going to meekly retreat the bishop to a5 because that would block the queen's pathway to a5. I went queen a5 anyway. And it's not hard to see that taking the bishop is horrific, because I give him this check. It's not mate because he can drop the knight back. This knight on b1 is absolutely toast after bishop a2. Then I just take the knight, and if it's not checkmate, then I'll massacre him along these squares. And this one I had, I'd seen this when I played c5, so I essentially pre-moved queen a5. But Magnus finds a really Magnus-like defensive move. Now, black is threatening bishop takes a3, which would rip open the king's defenses, and I still have enough pieces there to give checkmate. So Magnus drops his knight back to b1. That was a very annoying move, because what this move accomplishes is, well, it starts forcing a bunch of trades, which I don't want because I'm attacking, and it protects the a3 pawn, and it leaves black's pieces in the dust. So knight b1 came as a bit of a surprise to me. I spent 6 seconds on the next move, which is a lot for bullet. But I determined that I have to take his bishop, because now he's threatening to play a takes b4. Now this is a threat because the queen a1 is no longer a check. So bishop takes d2, queen takes d2. And of course, I shouldn't trade queen, so I drop my queen back to b6. Now Magnus continues the attack with g5, attacking my knight. I have no choice but to move the knight back, and Magnus goes f4. And f4 was the key mistake. This is the decisive mistake, after which I played very, very well to win the game. And f4 is a very natural move, but Magnus simply overlooked my response. I think the correct move here was probably to go... It's actually not easy to play this with white. I think he had to move his queen. I did get second place, yes. But at this point, I noticed that his king and the queen, as I often advise on the speedrun, are in a forkable situation, right? A knight on b3 could result in a fork. And obviously, I can't go knight b3 immediately. He just takes the knight. But you can improve that tactic. You can do something in order to pave the way for knight b3. And that move is bishop to b3. Yes. So bishop b3 is a super strong move. It attacks the pawn on c2, and it... What's up, Proffer? And if he takes, then I fork the king to the queen. The king and the queen. And if he pushes the pawn forward, then he gives up the exchange, and that's... I don't think anyone's saying that, Nick Sniper. You're the only one saying that. And if he doesn't do anything, then I take the pawn. So Magnus is an only move here, which is bishop out to d3. He's not going to go gentle into that good knight, because now the point is, if I take on c2, then he's going to take back with the bishop, and he protects the forking square. But in this position, I noticed that this bishop on d3 is actually very vulnerable. So I play the move c4, dislodging this bishop. Still, if he takes on b3, then I take back with the knight, and this is a fork to the king and the queen. But Magnus finds a really cool move here. Now, what he notices is that this move c4 has left the knight on d4 undefended. It's only now protected by the queen, but white's got two potential attackers on that knight. And so Magnus takes on c4. I missed this move. And he spent a whopping 1 second on it, which just shows you how sharp this guy is. And the point is that after bishop c4, queen takes d4, white finally gets this knight out of the picture, and white is up upon it, and I have nothing to show for it. And the issue, bishop takes c2 might seem tempting, but still queen takes d4. And if you take the rook, then the queen takes, and this actually might be decent for black, but it's not that clear. But in this position, I found something really, really cool. So what I noticed is that bishop takes c4 has the effect of opening the c-file. And the c-file is a direct line of fire to white's king. So the move that I naturally started considering, I played this move immediately. I mean, I don't know how, it just kind of occurred to me. This idea just sort of occurred to me, and I decided to roll with it. It's rook a to c8. Now, this move itself should be pretty obvious to everybody. The point is, this is actually checkmate. I'm not just winning the queen. This is literally checkmate. But here's the amazing part of it. Magnus takes the knight on d4 anyway. And now rook takes c4. And this attacks the queen, and it threatens checkmate on c2. And yeah, after queen takes d4, rook takes c4. If he takes my queen, this is just checkmate. It doesn't matter which rook you put on c8. But, of course, Magnus doesn't take on b6. And Magnus drops his queen back to d3. And so the obvious move here is to play rook takes d2. And this, of course, wins. This wins the queen, but it wins the queen for a rook and a piece. Look, the game is not quite over yet. All right, guys. There's no need to spam lichess. You know, it doesn't add anything to the chat. So, you know, it's funny one time, but there's no need to just keep repeating it. So this wins the queen for the rook and the knight. We're just reviewing a game, guys, and but in this position I spotted something really, really cool. I noticed that the queen protects the pawn on c2, and I've always said that the queen is the worst defender. So what can black do here? And this is a really cool move. Yeah, queen e3 check. Of course, it's very simple, but it's pretty. And if he takes my queen, then this is once again checkmate. It's just a simple decoy sacrifice. Queen e3 check. And he's absolutely busted here because, well, he did not. He declined to take. He played rook to d2. That's the only other move. And here I kept my composure. It's not that easy to find the crushing move, but here I simply took on c2 and he resigned. If he has no choice. I mean, king d1 just walks into a discovery. His only chance is to take, but compared to the previous position, I have the move queen takes c4 check, which forks the king and the rook on h1, and this wins another rook, and this wins the game on the spot. So that's the key difference. So queen e3 was actually the only move that won the game immediately. So this was all, yeah, this was all precise according to the computer. From the move c5, I played pretty much the top moves. So it was a moment of inspiration. But when I was in the moment, you know, you feel the excitement. But I could just sense once his king was boxed in like that on c1. Thanks, Montana. That something was about to go down. Yeah. So I had a couple of nice games in the titled arena. Yeah. No, I mean, I got lucky with his king and his configuration of the queen and the king. Can I repeat the whole combo? I can do that one more time. So c4 is where it starts, I think. No, I guess bishop b3 is where it's. So bishop b3 trying to get rid of the pawn. And now c4 to dislodge the bishop. So everything revolves around trying to make sure that this pawn disappears. But after bishop takes c4, this is really the most important move of the combination. Without rook ac8, everything would fail. And now the point is if he takes, then I take back. That is what happened. That is the only move. Queen to d3, trying to at least give up the queen for a rook and a piece. But no, sir, queen e3 check. Distracting the queen. He's got to block that. He can't take my queen because of mate. Now we play rook takes c2 and he resigned. Takes, and the final move is queen takes c4, which is why he resigned. Timothy Robert Ryan, thank you for the prime, appreciate it. This forks the queen and the rook. So yeah, that's basically it. That was my nicest game of the tournament. I had a couple of good games. I'll find them and show them later. Thank you, I appreciate it, everybody. Why not queen takes? Well, because if we take on d3 and take on c2, discover checks can be overrated sometimes. Black is winning, of course, but it's not as convincing. Black can go here, for example. Yeah, this is completely winning too, but my move wins even faster because it wins just a queen. Yeah, I think I won $250 for second place, but I don't really play in these tournaments for money. It's just it's a big honor to play Magnus and Ali Reza and all these people. It's super fun, and it's just a good way to spend 2 hours. So. Yeah, but that's a good question about why not taking the queen. Is there a difference between rook ac and rook ec? Another great question. No, there isn't. I don't think there is, but I like rook ac8 just to make sure the back rank is a little safer. I think rook ec8 is a little awkward. Ali Reza came first. Ali Reza was first. Ali Reza beat me to the ground this tournament. He had my number. He played amazing. Ali Reza just played incredible chess, so very well deserved victory by Ali Reza. This was this morning.